The Fantasy Skirmisher.
Assyrian is an old city veteran of many wars. The eastern section was built first as a military colony of the empire. Time passed and the empire fell. Now it was a trading center, and the western portion grew up around the docks and warehouses. Now alone it needed an army and a militia to repulse attacks from the wilds beyond the gates. Giants, trolls, orcs, and goblins all attempted to pillage and plunder Assyrian, but after each attack it rebuilt. One day, the monsters disappeared. Dragons had moved into the far mountains. Assyrian's army sallied forth to destroy their lair, capturing wealth and breaking the eggs. Then the dragons came to avenge the death of their family.
And this sets the stage for Dragon Rage. Hello everyone, I'm Nevin and welcome back to the Fantasy Skirmisher. Dragon Rage is designed by Louis Pulsifer and it was first published in 1982 by Dwarf Star Games. In 2010 it was republished in this deluxe expanded version by Flatland Games. Dragon Rage is an old school hex and counter war game that I think took inspiration from the 1977 game Ogre, which is designed by Steve Jackson. And the reason why I say this, I think, will become evident as we further explore this game. As you saw the box cover, it just really draws the eye. It's quite evocative of the theme. And the box itself is a little smaller than a standard game box. Just let me compare it here to Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game from Fantasy Flight Games. This is their Silver Lion series box size. And you can see it's just a little bit longer, but the width, or I should say the height, is the same. The game comes with two different rulebooks. The first one, where it's suggested that you read this first, covers the standard game, which is two dragons versus the walled city and its defenders. And then you've got a second rules reference, and this includes additional scenarios, rules for campaign play, and of course additional units, particularly that the invaders can use, such as orcs, goblins, giants, and other monsters. Now, a lot of these monsters have their own player sheets, and you can see the dragons right here. So this sheet covers both dragons, and you could see that the dragons have different parts with their hit points. And this is where I'm reminded of the game Ogre, because Ogre is a giant cybernetic tank where the defending forces attack the Ogre, and they attack it in different places, such as the missile racks, the treads, the primary and secondary armaments. And it's very similar to the dragons here, where you can attack the head, the wings, the legs, and the more you attack the legs, just like in Ogre's treads, the movement goes down, and then the belly. And there's two modes for the dragons, which we will cover, flying and walking. And then it comes with a dragon combat reference sheet and a wizard spells summary. And then more player aids. So we've got the giants, and as you can see here, they're all named. Rocks, a worm, T-Rex, and a sea serpent. Now, we've already seen some close-up details of the map, and as you saw, the artwork is just absolutely beautiful and among some of the most attractive maps I've seen. And you can see on the map here, it has a terrain key on it. And let's just open this up again. And the artwork on this map, the city of Assyrian, is very similar to the 1982 edition. So also included on the map is the turn record track, and you can see some are blue numbers. These blue numbers mean that defender receives reinforcements that turn. And on the back side, which was not in the original game, is the orc goblin village of Nurkot. And you can see that the details are just fabulous, just really attractive. And it too has the turn track and also has the map key on the top. And so in the second rule book, There's scenarios which include the humans now invading the orc and goblin settlement. And then we've got the counters, and we'll take a closer look at these. But we've got the defenders, the humans, and there's militia, infantry. You can see the wizard here. And on the back side is the old artwork from the 1982 edition. And then I've got a bag of enemies here, goblins, orcs, the wargs. And then there's some more monsters here, the rocks, the dragons, the giants, and others. Here we got some game markers. Victory point markers that show the destroyed areas of the city. And also just various condition markers such as broken gates or doors and spell effects, and of course the turn marker here. And the game also comes with 2 dice. The dragons win the game by destroying victory point hexes, and these are the buildings that are marked with the various numbers. Each number represents how many victory points that hex is worth. So when a dragon destroys a building, you put the corresponding destroyed marker on it, and that determines how many victory points they've achieved. So at the end of the game, if they received more than 16 victory points, then they are the winner of the game. So as far as the city forces, they win the game if the dragons are destroyed, or if 10 game turns pass in which no victory point hexes are destroyed. So there's a marker for that. You can see right here, last damage. So if the last damage was on turn 13 and we're on turn 24, then the city forces would win a victory. And also if 10 game turns pass in which no invader units are within the city walls. So if they're outside the city walls here for 10 game turns, then the city forces also win. And also the city forces win if the dragons get less than 16 victory points. Then their title is Featherless Chicken. Dragons destroy victory point hexes by either walking into the hex and spending a movement point. So we've got this dragon here, spends a movement point and an extra one in a victory point space and destroys that hex. And also if a dragon lands from flight or bounds into an unoccupied VP hex, then that hex would be destroyed as well. So if the dragon bounded like that, which we'll cover movement here in a moment, then that hex is also destroyed. Now, if you have a flying dragon, like this one here, usually dragons cannot breathe fire if they're flying, but the exception is if it's into a tower. And so if a flying dragon breathes fire into a tower, then that hex is destroyed as well. And also if a dragon gets shot down, or maybe due to a whirlwind spell cast by the wizard, if they crash into a hex, then that hex is destroyed. And also the whirlwind spell will destroy all victory points in a hex it occupies. There are 9 phases in a turn in the basic game, and we're going to go over each one, and that'll also allow me to explain the rules in sequential order as you play the game. First is invading player movement, and this is where the dragons can move and resolve any overrun attacks. So in this example here, we have a blue dragon, and one type of movement a dragon can do is walk. Before any movement, a dragon can change facing, and if you'll notice that the dragons have this colored arrow, and there's several different colored dragons, as you can see here, and that is their facing. So the 3 hexes to the front is the front, and then you've got the sides, and in the very back is the rear. So when a dragon walks, they have 4 movement points, assuming that their legs are undamaged. And first thing you could do is you could do a free hex spine or a 60-degree move. And then this dragon here will move 1 hex for 1 movement point, And if you notice, he moved into a shrine, which is worth 1 victory point. So he's going to spend an additional movement point to destroy that hex, which he does. So we place a destroyed marker with the value 1 on top of it. And the dragon decides he's going to keep moving. So he moves a 3rd movement point, changes 60 degrees, and then moves up towards the gate here where there's an infantry unit in the tower. On the dragon's next turn, he could attempt to smash that gate down. And it could do it automatically if there's no unit behind the gate, but here you can see there's a unit in the tower. And so for the dragon to be able to smash the gate, what we do is it would spend 1 or more movement points and then roll a die and to see if he's successful. So what you do is, let's say I'm going to spend 3 movement points to try to smash the gate down. I rolled a 3 or less, which means I was successful and that gate is smashed. Now gates, if you'll notice, have a red outline to them, and there's also doors which have blue outlines. For a dragon to smash open a door, all they need to do is face the door and they don't have to expend any movement points to automatically destroy it. And when a door is destroyed, what you would do is you'd put a broken marker that's facing the direction of the door that's smashed. Dragons, when they're walking, can also conduct overrun attacks. So here we have the yellow dragon, and what we would do is, assuming he has 4 movement points, would move onto the unit, which would cost an additional movement point, so this would be 2 movement points, and then conduct an attack where the dragon has 6 strength. And so if the unit's destroyed, keep on moving. Now, if the dragon did not destroy the unit, then the dragon could just sit there and wait till its melee phase. A walking dragon may overrun through an enemy occupied hex, ignoring the enemy unit. An overrun move is prohibited if the dragon must stop in the enemy hex because it has no movement points left to which to make that overrun attack. Also, overrun movement is prohibited inside a tower. So in this case here, this walking dragon moves 1, 2, 3, 4, hexes. So what happens if a dragon's legs are destroyed and is no longer able to walk? Well, what the dragon can do is something called slither. Here we have a red dragon, and a dragon that slithers can either change a hex spine, that is 60 degrees, or can move 1 hex. And so any dragon that slithers into a victory point hex immediately destroys that hex. And then you would put a destroyed hex on it, and then that dragon just got 2 more victory points. Another type of dragon movement is called bound, where it takes a giant leap. So before a dragon bounds, it can do a free 60-degree angle change, and then it could leap 1 to 3 hexes from its front. So in this example here, this dragon could leap here, here, or here, and it could jump right over that wall into the space here, or it could move up to the town hall here, which would automatically destroy it if you landed in the town hall, or it could move here and here. Theoretically, yes, the dragon can move into the river, but that would be a bad idea because the dragon would be killed. Dragons are not allowed to bound into enemy units except for heroes and wizards. And finally, we have flying. For a dragon to fly, it requires at least half of its wing points, and it can move 6 hexes and then make a free 60-degree turn after moving 2 hexes. So dragons may either take off or land during a fly move, which also requires at least half of its leg points to be able to take off, except from a tower. Dragons cannot land on a unit except for a hero or a wizard, and a dragon will automatically destroy a wooden bridge if it lands onto it. And landing into an enemy victory point hex that's empty also destroys it. So for example, we have the yellow dragon here, and there is a separate counter for flying, and it moves 3 hexes, and since it moved at least 2 hexes, it could do a free move, to its front, to its left or the right, move 2 more hexes, and we'll move, say, a third, and then the dragon lands. And now the dragon has landed. A bounding or flying dragon will crash if it's in the same hex as a whirlwind spell, or if it's flying and has its wing points reduced below half. When that happens, it suffers a 2d6 damage, or is killed if it crashes into a river or sea hex. Victory point locations or wooden bridges are destroyed. Units in the crash hex must roll an escape number or they are killed. To escape, each unit must roll equal to or greater than its escape number on a 1d6. A dragon in a tower with 1 or more wing points remaining may deliberately fall out of a tower in any location and crash into the neighboring hex below, suffering 2d6 damage. Crashing replaces the normal move for a dragon. And so you can see this archer unit here. So if this dragon crashed into this archer unit, the unit must roll a 6 to be able to escape being eliminated. The second thing you do in the sequence of play is dragon fire. So a dragon that is not flying or slithering may do a flame attack with its head. The exception is a flying dragon may breathe fire onto a tower hex if the dragon did not take off or land on that turn. Only tower hexes can be hit by fire from a flying dragon. The head cannot be used for any other attacks for the remainder of the turn, and the range is 3 hexes from the front. So it would be 3 hexes here, 3 hexes here, or 3 hexes here. A dragon cannot breathe fire through a wall or into a tower except through an open entrance. If breathing fire into a tower, the fire stops within the tower and travels no further. All units in the hex hit by dragon fire are destroyed unless they escape. So to be able to escape, each unit must be able to roll its escape number or more with a 1d6. So the escape numbers, in this example, you got the cavalry unit. It's the second number. You have attack and then escape. So the escape is 4, and this infantry unit, the escape number is 5. The militia is 6, as well as the archers 6. So to escape, like I said, each unit must roll its escape number on the 1d6, and any unit in a tower has a +2 bonus to the dive roll. Dragon fire into a VP hex will always destroy it, except for towers if the dragon is on ground level. Only dragon fire breathed through an open tower entrance will destroy the hex if the dragon is flying. A dragon can only breathe fire twice in the game, and there's a marker on the dragon's dashboard, so to speak, just to help you keep track. So it's right there at the top. So in this example here, I think obviously it makes sense to breathe fire straight along this line to its front, so that way it attacks both units and then destroys the temple for 2 victory points. After dragon fire comes the invading player melee phase. So the invading player resolves any melee attacks made by his units. And for the dragons, we have a handy player aid here, because dragons can make attacks from different body parts. So looking at the example here, we have the head, which has 8 hit points and attacks with a strength of 3. And the shaded areas indicates where the head can attack. And then the legs, there's 4 legs, assuming undamaged, and they could attack all around and of course on top of the dragon here, or I should say underneath the dragon. And then with 2 wings, they have a strength of 2 each, and they attack from the front and also the same hex as the dragon. And of course, the belly does not attack anything. So we have a total of 11 hit points theoretically if you combine all the attacks together, say attacking a unit from the front. In this situation here, the dragon has decided it's going to attack the cavalry with its head, both wings, and 2 legs for a total of 9 strength. So what it does is you look at 9 strength here, and the cavalry unit has a strength of 3. So you just cross-reference it, 9, the defender's strength of 3. So the dragon would need to roll on a d6, a 4, 5, or 6, to be able to destroy the cavalry unit. And that will leave over 2 legs or 2 strength points to attack the strength 1 militia unit. If 2 enemy units are stacked in the same hex, they must be attacked as one combined group. 2 or more different hexes with enemies must be attacked separately. And each area can only make 1 melee attack per turn, no matter how many enemies may be adjacent. Heroes need to hits to kill, use a wounded marker for the first hit. The wizard's attack strength is used for defense only. So if a wizard, not a wizard, but a hero gets hit, it is only wounded, and then on the next hit, then the hero would be killed. After the dragon's melee, now the rest of the phases go to the city forces, starting with the spell casting phase, where the city player may cast 1 spell with his wizard each turn. The city forces have 10 spell points that can be used per game to spend or boost spells. The first spell is Boost Morale. The duration is 1 turn, and the range is Self, but you could spend additional spell points to extend the radius up to 2 hexes out. And the effects are, it adds +1 to melee attacks or to versus dragons. It also allows militia to attack dragons, which they would not normally be able to do unless they are adjacent or with a hero. And it also raises the escape score by 1. Wizards could also cast Fog, which has a 3 hex radius and costs 2 spell points to cast. And its effect that there's no combat, dragonfire, landing, or bounding allowed. However, dragons can take off and fly over. And then there's Whirlwind, and it also costs 2 spell points. The area is 1 hex. It lasts 2 turns, and it destroys all victory point hexes that it's on. No combat is allowed except for the dragon's head and legs. For the dragon, it costs 1 movement point to enter or to leave. And if it's a flying dragon that goes through or into a whirlwind hex, it crashes on a 4+. And there's no dock unloading or reinforcements allowed in a whirlwind hex. So then on the second turn, the first turn counter is replaced with a 2, and then it disperses. And then after that, we have Lightning Bolt. It's instant in duration, has a range of 1 to 5 hexes, and it costs 3 spell points, and it does direct damage. And then finally, Summon Elemental. So you could summon the monster here. The duration is variable, and it costs 5 spell points, so it's pretty expensive. And so that way you could get a monster to fight on your side. After spell casting is the City Forces Reinforcements phase, and that is on turns, if you recall, that are marked in blue. The City Forces receive reinforcements. And so 4 infantry units can arrive in a vacant dock hex or on the bridge in 1413. If you don't have enough infantry units for the reinforcements, then you'd have to use militia instead. Next is City Forces movement, and units are rated for both regular movement and for street movement. So you can see this infantry unit here has a normal move of 2, and then in the parentheses there is the street movement of 3. So if a unit stays on a road, it can move that additional hex. So for example, the infantry unit here could move 1, 2, 3. Moving through a gate or a door for the city forces does not cost any additional movement points. And you move each unit 1 at a time. However, you can interrupt a movement to allow another unit to move. So that way you could have, say, cavalry pass an infantry unit to be able to make a charge on that dragon. After movement is City Fortress Archery. So archery attacks have a range of 2 hexes, but you have a range of 3 from a tower, such as this archery unit, which is in a tower, and therefore can reach this dragon here. Walls and towers block line of sight. However, line of sight is not blocked if an archer unit is in a tower or the dragon is flying. At a 1 hex range and shooting at a dragon not in flight, a 5+ is needed to hit. In any other situation, including firing at a flying dragon, a 6+ is needed to hit. If the dragon is flying when hit, it automatically takes 2 damage points in the belly. If the dragon is hit by missiles, it will suffer 1 damage point in the wings, legs, or head, whatever area that is selected by the archer. And now we come to City Forces Melee. Any unit that's in the same or neighboring hex to a dragon may attack it. Melee attacks are prohibited if the unit or dragon is in a tower, but not both, or if the attack is across a wall hex side, or if the dragon is in flight. When a unit attacks, it indicates what area the dragon is being attacked and then rolls a 1d6. And if the proper number is rolled, then that dragon takes damage in the indicated area. So for example, if you have the infantry unit that's right here in front of the dragon, you could attack the head and be successful on a 6+. And the infantry has a strength of 2 and would deal 2 damage. And then you can see for the legs, you hit on a 5+, and you could be anywhere around the dragon, including underneath it. The wings, you need to be on the sides, and you'd be able to hit the dragon on rolling a 4+. And then the belly, you would be in the same hex as the dragon. You'd be attacking underneath it, and you would also hit on a 4+. In this example, we have a cavalry unit making a charge into the dragon's side. And let's just say that it is going for the dragon's legs to try to immobilize it. So the unit charges, and you roll a d6. And let's see if I can find my d6. Here we go. And you'd roll the die, and to be able to hit the legs, it is a 5+. I rolled a 1, so I missed. But let's just say, for example purposes, we rolled a 6. Then the cavalry unit would inflict 3 damage because their strength is 3, and you would take the dragon's dashboard, so to speak, and you would indicate the damage on the dragon's legs. So 1, 2, 3. So we just moved from 4 movement points to 3 movement points with a 3 damage. Then after the city forces conclude their melee phase, the game turn is over and you advance the turn pointer to the next turn and start again. So to summarize the turn sequence, it starts with the invading player movement, then dragon fire, then the invading player melee phase, city forces spell casting, city forces reinforcements, city forces movement, city forces archery, city forces melee, and then the turn is over and you move the turn marker. And that is how you play the basic game, which in reality is the most difficult scenario, the basic one. And this because the dragons have the most complicated movement and combat, with all their different moving parts, so to speak. And here you can see on the Nurkot side of the map, I just put out a variety of different creatures, such as the worms and goblins and orc hero, orcs, wargs, giants, sea serpents, a T-Rex, rocks, various elementals. There's just a lot of variety, and you could, in addition to the scenarios that this comes with, create your own. We covered the Dragon Rage game manual, and then we have the rules reference. And as you can see, it has a very extensive table of contents that covers a lot of the rules that we just went over. The different game parts, the terrain, game turn order. But the game turn order for the advanced game is different because you now have orcs, goblins, who may be infantry or archers, things like that. So that has changed. More detailed rules on the spell casting, the different various units, which we just looked at, and also the major monsters. So it goes over the dragon's rules again. And then it has the different scenarios, which I believe is on page 29. Yeah, page 29. And so you can see for Assyrian, there is 6 different scenarios. And then for their Nurkot map, there's also 6 scenarios. And then there's a section where you could create point-based scenarios and design scenarios on your own. So you can see just the different point costs for the different types of units. And you'll notice here it has Young Dragon. And that's one thing we didn't cover, but the basic game has 2 adult dragons. Young dragons only use the numbers shaded with a white underline here. And so they're a little more brittle. Obviously, they're still powerful, the dragons, but for example, they could only use their fire breath once, not twice. The rules reference also covers campaign rules and tournament rules, but I'll leave that to discover on your own. So overall, I really like this game. It is a basic 2-player hex encounter, old school war game. It is, in my opinion, more fun playing with an opponent versus playing solitaire, but solitaire is completely doable. And it is a game that has survived many purges in my game collection over the years. I do like this game a lot. It's wide open. There's lots of things you could do. It's almost sandbox as far as creating your own scenarios. And it just has a unique place in my fantasy game collection. So it is, for me, a keeper. It is not available anymore with the publisher, but you could find it on the Board Game Geek Market, eBay, and I'm sure a number of other retailers as well. So it's not impossible to find, but it's not cheap. I know when I bought this retail, it was $75, but I'm sure you could find some bargain prices for a used game of this, if that is something you want. All right, and just the last thought is the dragons. You really got to be careful as a dragon player. I mentioned that to me it seemed pretty similar to Ogre as far as some of the mechanics, but with the cybernetic tank, you could just plow right through the conventional forces. You got to be careful with your dragons because they are pretty fragile, and over time the city forces are going to erode their abilities. So you really got to make sure you're focused on destroying those victory point markers and preserving the strength of your dragons, so that way they don't become immobile, crash, unable to fly, or just have to move around on their belly by slithering. All right, that's it, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time on the Fantasy Skirmisher. Please like and subscribe if you like this content, because I certainly plan to do more. Bye-bye. Finally, I just want to share a player aid that I created not long after I got the game, which basically condenses the rules into an expanded sequence of play. And I pretty much use this for the video teaching you the game. So it starts with the invader player movement, dragon fire, invading player melee, so on and so forth. And then it has how to win, which I discussed at the beginning of the video, and just a reminder or a summary of how to destroy victory point hexes, and then some additional rules about heroes since they are special units. You could find this on the Board Game Geek file section in the games page.